What if the answers you've been searching for have been inside you all along? Welcome to Insights with Purpose, the power of inner wisdom. We're Hemali and Sheila, two friends on two continents, having the conversations that bring us closer to the truth of who we are. No scripts, just real talk. Pull up a seat.
Today, we're talking about the thing the spiritual journey asks of you that nothing in this world prepares you for: surrender. Not the poster version, the real one. The one where your fridge is empty, your practice has gone silent for 6 months. God has been asking you to do one thing since December, and you've been refusing. And then you finally listen, and 4 days later, a prayer is answered. The one where your back goes out and a voice says, "Are you done yet?" The one where you quit your doctorate 2 classes before finishing because your soul said stop. If you're white knuckling your life right now and something keeps whispering, let go, stay with us. By the end, you might realize that surrendering is just another part of the journey, the part that asks that you learn to let go.
I think this is the first time
Yeah,
we've struggled so deeply
yeah,
to actually go into an episode recording.
yeah.
What is this?
It's a big topic, right? I mean, we took 3 weeks off
Yeah.
for each one of us. Same started with me and then you, and then we're learning, or we're in the teachings of surrender, in the process of surrender to what is, and just trusting and having faith that everything that needed to be happen, we're moving along with the divine plan, divine timing, and divine time. I said time.
Divine timeline. It's just,
Timeline, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is a big topic. And it's one of those topics that begs you to be within it, you know?
Yeah.
And if one thing we should say, or why not say this, but everything we've talked about, we've lived through
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the week or the weeks following the recording of the episode. We've
Yeah.
experienced the episodes, right? So
Yeah.
it's not coincidental that here we are
Yeah.
in the surrendering episode, and it's like, is this going to happen?
Yeah.
And we just have to surrender, right?
Yeah.
To what should be. But it is one asks you to consider so many things, right?
Yeah.
What is surrender? What does it mean? What does it feel like? Why do we want to talk about it? How does it land in the process of a spiritual awakening and the spiritual journey? The human life is
Yeah.
is peppered with these
Yeah.
moments of surrender, but what is it really, and how do we bring a little bit of navigational tools around these periods, right?
And this is how we're starting today, right?
That's right,
So,
Himali. Yeah.
hi, Sheila. How are you?
Hi, Himali. I am here.
Right?
That wasn't a given a
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago, so I'm here and I'm grateful for that.
Yes, me too. This topic of surrender, I personally took me a long time. I sat with this word, surrender. What does it mean to me? How does it look like to me? For some reason, and I don't know why, I still can't figure out why did I feel, or I felt that I never completely surrender, or I am not able to surrender. And I think looking back at it, I feel like that letting go, I know it's very hard for many of us to let go of things. Either you may feel you're quitting on something, quitting a situation, quitting a relationship, giving up. Does it look like giving up? What does surrender really mean? And I really struggled with this topic. How about you, Sheila?
I think the hallmark of surrender is struggle.
Right?
especially when you're in that what does it mean phase, and how do you learn that letting go doesn't equal giving up,
Mm,
right? And we're often taught to follow through in everything that we start from children, where all the time, but you have to get good grades, but you have to be a good student, or but you have to graduate, but you have to choose a college and a career path. So the expectations are always there through parents, culture, society in general, right? And we often equate surrender and letting go with we have failed. And until I learned the difference, it was a very tough path to walk, you
mm,
know? I think for me, this big thing felt initially like the tower card on tarot.
mm,
I hated getting those. I was like, oh, not another moment where I am called to like observe and watch everything fall apart because it's supposed to be for my highest and best good. I'm tired of those, you know? I always looked for some sort of normalcy. I grew up without my mom next to me. My dad remarried, creating an extended sort of a salad family. And when I got a little bit older and eventually married and had children, I always seek to have the other side of that. I wanted to have the marriage that lasted forever, the kids that grew up in the same household, you know? And for many reasons, the universe, God, creator, that wasn't the case, right? So I was called to, that was the first thing I was called to fully surrender to. I didn't know how to do that. I was kicking and screaming through the process of that relationship ending, of having to move, of having to be the sole provider for my children, of the what are people going to say stories. I didn't feel whole. And this was prior to my awakening. But this is how I felt surrender then. I felt a failure. I felt like now people can point at me and say, well, look, she wanted this, or she did this wrong, or she should have done that, you know? It felt like it marked me, like a scarlet letter on me. And the letting go of the dreams of the picket fence and growing old with that person that you married and all of those things, having the kids be in a household that was united, all of that falling away stripped me down to my core, to my nothing. My identity became muddled up in the whole thing, you know? It was not a pretty process. The first time I came across this needs to be cleared out of your life in
mm,
order for your next chapter to begin, it wasn't pretty and it didn't feel pretty, and it was really a crumbling of the entire idea I had in my head and what now was not going to happen. It was as if the universe was like, yeah, no, psh, and broke everything through and like, this is not going to happen for you, figure it the fuck out, right?
yeah.
And it felt awful in my body. I was getting sick a lot. I experienced it as my immune system collapsing constantly over and over and over again. And not many people think of these moments, think back after an awakening. Wait, when was the last time I was confronted with this? What is that surrender? What was my first interaction with this concept? And how did I walk through it? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just listening to you about surrender. I mean, there are so many, you surrender even as a child, so many things. You're learning, but you have to surrender to understanding of, for example, for myself, my experience, and that I was very sick at one of the grades I was in. And in India, like if you even get lower grade or fail in one subject, you have to repeat the whole grade. So in fifth grade, I was very, very sick. And so I don't remember what I didn't do well in. And so I had to repeat the grade. But that's surrender. Now I have to go into, and if you're in a school, it's like it's something where the teachers move around, the kids are in the same class, and sometimes it's just one classroom per grade. And so everybody knows everyone. And so now you remain in the same classroom, but the kids from the grades below come into that class. And so, and all your friends are in the higher grade. And so surrendering into that, I don't even remember how did I pick myself up and go that first week to the classroom. What did I feel? I don't remember. How did I behave? What was, I don't remember any of it, but I am sure that I had to surrender to that. Surrender to moving to US. I did not want to. I was 18. But because my whole family was moving and my parents were not going to leave me behind because I was 18, because I didn't have, I guess after a certain age, it would be hard for me to come over. We came on a green card, but to get here with a family, my dad and mom are like, we're not leaving you alone. And I had family who would have taken me in, but just moving here. So like there's so many moments in life that I had to surrender, but never thought about it as surrender.
Yeah.
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 And these things are just coming up as we are talking, but the struggle I've had considering this topic in terms of surrendering to the habits and patterns that I've developed, over the years. They may not be good, right? It can sabotage yourself and the relationships around you. And so recognizing those things and changing and shifting if you want change in your life, if you don't want those things to keep reoccurring in your life. And as simple as where we were talking about electronics around me, always breaking down. And I didn't understand. And this is going on for a long time. And my brother would always complain, like, these things last for a long time. Why do they always fall apart or break down? What are you doing? And, my cell phone constantly, I have a year-old phone and yet it keeps breaking down. I have to buy a new one or it shuts down on its own. So it has energy of its own. My electricity, like the plugs, like my fireplace, it never works and we get it fixed. It turns off again. So it's like every year, every few months, we have to ask someone to come and help us fix all these things. To surrendering, sometimes you just have to surrender to these things and know that, okay, this is another day and this is what's happening. Everybody around me is kind of used to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All those small little, I've come to associate surrender with little deaths because I'm never the same after the experience of surrendering to whatever it is, right? It's like, okay, that is gone. And then I'm born again, right? Let's try again. You don't really think of these things, as you go on in your everyday life. But I want to get back a little bit to that experience of in the body because I think it's important to recognize when you surrender or when you need to or when you're being made to surrender, right? Because they feel very differently. One feels like a rug is swept from under your feet and you just fall and tumble and hit yourself and you're bruised and bleeding and you don't know where your head is at, where your feet have landed, And the other is more like, well, what can I do now? It's this feeling of, all right, everything has shifted. I'm still trying to hold it together. Why? What is that impulse to control the outcome of the things? And this is where things usually end up in that pulling out of the rug by the universe, like, you didn't listen to me. So let's not go very far down the line, but 2-3 weeks ago, I don't know, time is like obsolete. We've been living this episode. My back went out. We're supposed to record. I text Hemali, yo, this is not happening. We're going to have to wait because I can't sit. I'm not feeling well. And you would think I would just lay low. Every day I attempted to sit at the desk and work on something. And it continued to get worse. And I think because I pushed myself, it continued to get worse. And I should have listened to my body. All these years, we're talking about 6 years of daily communication with my guides, with watching the signs, with putting things into practice, with guiding people through their own processes. And yet my body's saying, you need to sit down. And I can't listen because I don't want to use this as an excuse. I thrive and when the universe has stepped in, because this is not the first time, and completely had me laid out, I always try to push myself a little bit and say, no, let me see how far I can push this. All to say, it's a very different feeling than when I understand, okay, I am being shown that I need to let go because of X, Y, and Z. And I don't even listen sometimes to those either. I'm stubborn. Just as I'm curious, I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
I like keeping tabs on what I'm doing. I like to have a deadline and meet my deadlines. I like to have things organized a specific way. And when that doesn't happen, it creates internal chaos. And this is a lesson I am continuously learning to observe the signs so I don't end up with the rug pulled out of my feet and completely laid out in bed. It is a continuous thing and it shifts and changes depending on the lesson. And some are easier than others. Like I have a hard time pinpointing when I need to stop. I can spend 12 hours working and be like, okay, what's next? And when I do that for a week and a half, 2 weeks in a row,
Yeah.
it's taxing. But I go into this flow of existence where I don't notice it until I'm laid out. And my guides have been telling me you need to find space to rest. I put it on my calendar because they were so insistent. You need to find place to rest in your week. And still I pushed. And what did they do? Okay, little girl, you're not going to listen. You have to rest now. You cannot sit, you cannot stand, you cannot lay for more than 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
It becomes an internal war. And there are people who don't struggle as much with this. You would think I would listen more frequently. But when it comes to deadlines and having things to do and complete, that becomes my drive. And it completely bypasses any rational or spiritual mindset that I may have. And there's a part of me that really loves that chaotic, I have to do this by tomorrow thing. So my guides tend to take me out for a few. And this is what happened very recently. This is why we're recording when we're recording, or one of the reasons why. But you always think it's going to feel like a big tower moment and like you're going to lose your job or your relationship's going to fall apart. But sometimes it's as simple as your back went out. You have a cold for the longest time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that reminds me of one of the back pains I've had, and that was my first time that I experienced that severe back pain. I could not move, could not turn in the bed. I think I woke up that way. And of course, my first thing, I can't take pain. So I'm like yelling and screaming. And my husband's like, take the pain meds. And I don't take pain meds. Maybe I would do homeopathic, but I was like, no, I'm gonna ride this through. But yet I'm screaming and yelling. I literally can't move. All of a sudden, it's like this click. It's like, are you done yet? A voice I hear. And I was like, what do you mean? And of course, this is an internal conversation. No, I'm not done yet, And are you done yet? I said, okay, fine, I'm done. And the reminder, I was like, start sending energy to your back. Take a deep breath. Pause, right? Stay still and just pause and breathe. And even, some pain, like you breathe deep and it still catches. So even if shallow breath, it's okay. Just take a moment to focus on the breathing part. And I tell you, maybe I was there for half an hour. I just did Reiki on myself. I did the healing. Of course, I'm laying. I can't put my hand on my back, but just concentrating on that area and the emotional aspect of it, right? Working through that. No kidding. That pain went down to 6 out of 10, which means I was able to get up, get out of bed, start moving. And anytime I would get upset, whoop, my back would catch again. And like, okay, okay, I'm breathing. Anytime I felt like you were saying, right, I'm going to do a little bit. That day I was going to work on my business. I was going to do this. I had everything laid out and planned. It's like, nope, you're not doing any of that. Not only that, I decided to go to walk in the woods. So my husband and I walked in the woods slowly, and that pain went down to 3 out of 10. Then the message was to go sit in the tub. So I had magnesium, the Epsom salt and lavender scent. So I was sitting in the bathtub for a while. That pain went down to 2. So that whole day was gone in taking care of myself, just being with myself. And that wasn't the day to start working on my business. That was the message. But sometimes it's like you run after things you want to do, you have plans. And I've learned since 2015 that you can make as many plans as you want to, and they sit there and laugh at you like, yeah, go ahead, plan for 5 years, plan for 10 years, what you're going to do 10 years down the road, just plan all that, map out your life to like maybe 20 years down the road. And it's like, but we'll see what happens next moment, right? You just never know. And I've learned that. So I've been there with that pain and how it feels. And just like you, I sat in my sister's and I was like telling her, my sister drives Tesla. I sat in the back and I was telling you, my tailbone was hurting so badly. I don't know what happened. I could not move. I couldn't get out of the car, couldn't get in. This is last week. And for 2 days, and then it was gone. And I had an expo, so I had a booth giving, but while I'm giving Reiki, I'm totally fine. I can move around, no pain. So, yeah, it works wonders.
If you listen, it works one. Yeah. I hear you. I wish I didn't struggle so much with listening when
Yeah.
I've set a date for something. Because other than that, I think I find myself most of the times being a good listener of spirit,
Yeah.
right? Because I've learned to. After that divorce from my first husband, I had to let go not only of the dream but the material aspects, the home, the everything you collect in a marriage that you find that you have like an attachment to. And this is what the thing is the attachment to either the material thing or the outcome of something is what causes the turmoil. If you do not attach a specific outcome to things or a specific sentimental value to things, you don't care. You're just like, okay, take it. So you're a lot more willing to just let go of whatever it is, right? But for me, that's when like things started to, in the material world, shift into learning to give things up. And this wouldn't come around in the same way in my life until after 2020 and my awakening. That was a whole other crumbling of life as I knew it. Not only was I didn't have a job that I had had for 14 years, that I had grown to where I wanted to be, earning what I thought I should be earning, wicked hard hours, but still I felt successful. I felt here I am this many years after that divorce, thriving, being able to provide for my kids. And then I go and get COVID. Mind you, I got COVID at my job. So I get COVID, I get sick, 45 days. When I returned to work, it wasn't the same. I couldn't remember tasks that I was doing for 14 years. There were gaps in my mind. I didn't have the ability to recall as quickly. I wasn't able to stand for as long, as many hours. I wasn't able to put in as much physical work as I had been because COVID had, what I was told is that it had nestled into my lungs and my brain. And those areas, I could see where they were affected every day. So eventually I didn't have that job, but I saw that career of years of building that completely come down and crumble, going back into another failed relationship at that time, going back to not being able to provide to my kids. And it was like night and day from one moment to the next. Or it felt like that because it really was a few months. But every single thing I had labored to have completely fell. And this time around, it was equally difficult, but I had a really strong connection to spirit that guided me to release easier and to not have as strong as an attachment to the material things I had. My biggest thing became being able to provide for my kids, not having a house we could go to because the apartment went. I couldn't pay for it, right? I couldn't pay for the apartment. The relationship crumbled. The job was gone. The doctors were saying this is early onset Alzheimer's, so it was a lot of tower moments, a lot of holy Jesus, what is happening to me? But they came with why now and what is the lesson here? Because now I had a connection to spirit that I could investigate further. Now I was listening to my guides really loudly say, this is the next step. It wasn't easy. I still felt like the whole world was ending, with the distinction that I knew it was ending temporarily. The first time around, I felt like I would never get up. Like my life as I knew it forever and ever was over. This time around, I knew it was for a fraction of my life. And even though it came with lots of feelings of grief and loss and questioning, I also had a lot of hope. I knew it wasn't forever. I knew it. And I don't know how else other than say I knew. I internally had this knowing that this was guiding me into better, into another chapter, into more ease, and into the life that I wanted to have. I also did not have that huge dip into depression as the first time around. I was sad, yes, but I knew because it was temporary, I just knew I had to put my foot in front of the other, one in front of the other, and keep going, keep going. Feel your feelings. I was told this by my guides constantly. Don't keep anything inside. Cry, be angry, but don't keep it in. Don't hold it back. What is in here for me? What do I learn from this? I remember I was looking for jobs anywhere I could find one, and I started working at a bakery. I was never a baker, professionally. And I got this job at a bakery as the head baker. I've never done that before. And there it was. And so a wind of fresh opportunities started coming in. It wasn't where I wanted to be. I grieved the ability to provide for my kids, but I also felt that wave of fresh air coming in. Keep going. Don't stop now. You've come so far. You did it once, you can do it again. So it had a different flavor to the whole experience. The less I attached to the material possessions and was able to say, okay, here you go. I remember I had people walking into my apartment and things would just say, I don't belong to you anymore. And the object itself would be like, I'm going with this person. And again, I went from having all of these material things and being well off to not having a home. So I've experienced this topic of surrender cyclically, and it rears itself back. I've noticed when there is a need for the new chapters or new energies to come in. I've learned that I don't have to experience them that way anymore. My life doesn't have to fully collapse in order for me to take better aligned action. And that I didn't know that before. And here I am still stubborn to this day, but it has really made a difference in my everyday life.
Yeah. And I think that, as human, we all have that strong hold on things and how things are. And we want it to continue. And we want to stick to the plans. We want to, because that's our nature. We've learned that, since we were kids. And so I think that no matter what, there is that, even if you progress and you really follow the guidance and intuition, I think there will be a tiny moment where we would still think like, should we hold on, right? I really think that, because I'm thinking in terms of like, okay, if you become a monk, which I don't think we are, but there will be a moment where we will still, for a second, even think about, well, I don't want to let that go. And you're right, attachment is the main thing of suffering, right? The strong hold that you have on things and people and anything, your habits, your patterns, the harder it will be. And either it can be like snatched away, velcro off of you, and leave like so many marks, wounds on you, versus you easily let it go. And I'm sure that as humans, we all had to, at some point in our life, had to surrender to something or the other, someone or the other. And I think, I keep going back. The way I started in this journey also was where I was doing my doctorate in physical therapy. And this is 2013. It was my third class. And I was just getting sick. Things were just not lining up. And of course, I was relying on my friend who was also taking the classes, asking for help. And at some point, I had to make a decision. I had two more classes to go to finish. And something just told me I needed to stop right there. I just let go of it. And I really thought about it. I really sat with it, made educated decision. And, of course, I felt like I'm quitting something. I had two more classes to go, right? And it's like, what am I showing my kids? That I'm quitting halfway? So that title of doctor in front of my name, and the feeling or the society around us that only if I had the name or doctor in front of my name, I would, people would listen to me. People would value whatever I say, right? It would be worth something. They will pay attention a little bit more than what I'm just saying right now. So I had to let go of that belief, and the belief that it's okay. I think I sat with it and I was like, to show my children that it's okay to let go when it's time. And as soon as I did that, I'm telling you, the best sleep I've slept. I felt so at ease. Things, and just like, as soon as I said, this is it, things started working out for me. I took, I heard this probably podcast. I don't know. At that time, I was listening to Robin Sharma. He was talking about start investing in yourself. We always invest in our career, we're taking these classes to advance ourselves, certificates and all that. And how much are you really investing in yourself? How many classes are you taking to advancing yourself as a person? And that was such a big moment, I think, for me. And then that's when I started on this journey of doing, took Reiki, took nutrition, the holistic nutrition coaching classes. And it just kind of, things just started falling into its place after that. Life became so much easier. But yes, then it started unraveling. But to see that, what it is. And when you're talking about, another thing that I had to really surrender to is the knowledge that, when somebody really, you can see the hatred towards you in their eyes, what they say, and to surrender to, there are millions of people in this world. Not everyone's going to like you, and you're not going to like everyone, and that's okay. That is completely okay. And that has nothing to do with who I am. Sometimes you don't even want to clear that misunderstandings, don't want to, so you just let go completely and be as the person you are. And I had to, when you know who you are as that loving person, or whatever your innate nature is, it's so much easier to accept that it's okay. It's okay to, that is their opinion, and it has nothing to do with who I am and what I am.
Yeah, that's a big one. Disengaging
Yeah.
that belief that you have to prove yourself. to someone
Yeah.
in order to feel like you are something. And that's two classes to go, and being faced with that understanding of, wait, I have to stop here. It takes special
Courage.
type of courage.
Yeah.
Yeah. To just say, I'm pushing through this one. I know it looks like crazy. I know it looks like crazy outside looking in, right? And people are people. Externally, they're the whole point is that you're always choosing for yourself what is
Yeah.
best for you, regardless of what it looks like to an onlooker, right? You always, this actually minimizes the times you have to go through this process of surrender. Whenever you are really anchored in and dialed into, what do I need? What am I forgetting? And taking time to sit with yourself and taking that inspired action that you're feeling needs to happen. I had the best year in my practice last year. The best. It fully surpassed anything I could ever thought it would achieve. Clients, bookings, people, everything coming in, offers moving, developing, all of this feeling of, wow, I finally have traction in this practice that has been baby stepping through my awakening process. And late last year, around December, I started hearing you need to sit with your offers because there are offers that don't align with you anymore. They don't align with where you're going. They don't align to the shifts that have happened for you in your life, right? And I was like, yeah, but they're working, right? I get it. I could feel this. And no joke, I really could feel that internally. There was a disconnect happening. And I took some time and sat with my offers for a little bit. I changed the graphics for the offers, the language. I worked on my bio. But my guides were asking me to not have those turned on, okay? To set them to like private or not have them on my booking page because there was a disconnect. And listen, it's June, right? Up until mid-May, this person who had the world by the horns last year had not gotten one paying client for anything, but especially for the offers that were there first and center, front and center, nothing. Through the months as they passed, I still had clients that had booked specific sessions from the year before, and I was still working, but there was nothing coming in. There was no flow happening, right? And I'm still doing my process. I'm still chanting, meditating, using my tools, but the guides were still in my head. You haven't taken those offers off. And I think I mentioned it to you at one point. I'm not feeling like these offers are clicking with me anymore. There's something, there's a disconnection between these offers and where I'm going. But I had a fear. What if I take them off and then I really have no possibility of having any client sign up, right? And we were fine up until a couple of months ago. The guides had said earlier on, April and May are going to be tough for you. It's like, okay. I kept going, doing my thing, sitting with the guidance. But I, stubbornly enough, had not done the one ask they had been asking of me since December. So you know what happened? All of the money that was coming in or had come in from the year before dwindled to where my fridge was empty. You know, we were getting by each day. And we still, and this is the biggest difference, it was a grim time. We didn't know where the next thing was coming, but prayer never failed. It wasn't absent. We sat and prayed for every meal, even though it was just eggs with avocados. Thank God we have an avocado tree because it fed us the whole 2 months, okay? And as we were approaching like the last of last, let me shut those offers off.
I'll listen to you now.
6 months later almost. And I'll pay attention. Let me just shut these offers off. I shut the offers off. I keep praying. Hemali, not 4 days later, a prayer was answered to the amount immediately. I I was blown away because if I remember to move aside and allow guidance to work through, and you'll say, but Sheila, why didn't you do it? You've had so many experiences. I have had, this is not the first time, y'all. I've had countless of times with miracles just show up out of the blue. And usually, what happens is we get entangled with the way we do things. Oh, well, I've been doing this and it's been working. Well, if I shut it off, then there's no even a possibility that something will show up. But being able to have the aperture for the miracles to come in, for the clients to show up, for things to shift. Why? Because God is not asking me to work hard. This last 6 months, he's been asking me to rest. That's it. And I've not done it. And my health has suffered. Guess what? I have rest days now on my calendar. Yes, my back went out. Things will still happen. The way you approach them, the way you navigate them will completely determine how long or how rough you tumble. Because listen, Sheila, all you had to do was turn them off. It didn't cost anything, right? I just had to listen. But I'm glad I listened. 4 days after, to the amount income, okay? What did I hear 4 days later? Now you can turn them back on. And what happened? I went really quickly and turned them back on because I was like, okay, lesson learned.
Yeah.
Turned them back on and immediately had bookings. Why was I not listening? Because when you allow yourself to be the one that leads, you will fall. It's not sustainable. I can only see up until a certain point of my life. Like you said, plan 20 years of your life if you want. Girl, plan a month is going to test you. We know we've been trying to meet for 3 weeks now. So the idea is that if you are attached to the way you are doing things as the only way it works, is not sustainable. Spirit is always trying to communicate, always trying to tell you, hey, I can see more than just one step ahead. Do this thing. It wasn't I who was successful last year in my practice. It was successful because I listened. And that is the surrender. That is the true surrender. When that guidance comes in and you go, I know God is there. I know no matter what that looks like, when I shut it off, God is there, right? And a lot of times we get swept up by, I did this, I created this, I made this happen. My heavy duty working 12, 14, 16 hours made this happen because we have this idea in our head that we can only accomplish as far as what we push for. If you're not working, you're not going to get anything done. That's not true, And this last 6 years of my life have taught me so much, and I'm still learning. I will always be learning. As long as I have a human body, I will be in learning mode because there are things I can only tap into by going through them up until I say, enough, I learned the lesson. So when I worked my calendar, my month, I input 1 full day every week. That's just mine for me. And every day that I'm working, I'll put a timer on my clock. You've been working for 45 minutes. Stand up, right? So you have to learn to help yourself navigate this human aspect that is very mind center, that drive from the ego that's attached to the stories that we grow up listening to. That is what you need to train. Remember, the ego is a 2-year-old that you take by the hand, not something you listen to for advice. So all to say, I was in the middle of that desperation, and now we're in June, and all of a sudden there's new energy and new possibility and new opportunity. And I know that as long as I continue to show up for myself and listen to the guidance I receive constantly, I'll be okay. It is when I'm thinking I am doing the doings and stop being the being that I get in trouble.
I can name endless experiences I've had where I don't listen or are just constantly going on 2, 3 years sometimes that I don't do certain things. And for me, and I guess, your example shows that too. Sometimes when you don't listen, it is so hard to move forward. When you're not listening to the guidance coming in, it's very hard to move on to the next because there's always that block, and you can keep going forward for how many of every years, but then it to me it never feels fulfilling, anything that happens from the experiences that I've had, that feeling. So I think that complete trust is needed, and we always talk about trusting the process and faith, right? That complete faith that we are taken care of, that it is, you ask and it is given. Not when you want it, like right now, but it is given. How you want it. It may not look like how you want it when you want it. It may look better. And I've experienced that, the opportunities you feel that you may miss, and you just pick first one, and it is scary, right, to not have any income. And I've been told time and time again, but you have your husband who works, who does, but I have my own, expenses and work and things that I need to work on. So, of course, I want to strive for better. And yes, I do have a husband who provides and helps with everything. I am absolutely grateful for that. And I feel blessed for that I am supported. But yet, I do struggle in many ways in terms of finances, but I leave it up to the divine. And I know, and I have always been blessed since I was a child. I had this belief or complete faith that whenever I want something or a bill needs to be paid, the money comes from any source. And I'm always open. I'll only ask and it's given. So yeah. So it's that complete faith and trust is
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah. And that's where we're tested, right?
Yeah.
How deeply in your faith are you walking, and how strong is your heart within that faith? Because
Yeah.
surrender is not easy. Otherwise, it would be one and done. But guess what? It comes around with healing. Same thing. It's a spiral. The more you can sustain, the more you can sustain the ability to surrender, the more you can sustain the ability to expand and heal yourself. Because we're talking about lifetimes of processing. We're talking about ancestral lineages of healing work and all these things that are stored within us as DNA and passed down energetically or not. Every single day that we're alive is another one of those things unfolding for us. And everything will be an opportunity. But to understand that the quicker you get yourself out of the way, the quicker you will find that flow, that alignment again, back into that source, back into that abundance, back into that ease, the better you will become when it comes to surrendering in any aspects. It's a tough topic.
Yeah.
It's a tender, difficult one that you learn to navigate as you go. After the whole thing with COVID and not having a place to stay, I ended up having to move back in with my parents, and it was tough. I'd not lived with them since I was 17 years old. So here I am in this house, still kind of like recovering and navigating and having to look at unhealed aspects of the dynamics and process them in real time, And my kids came with me, but it came a point where my son had to move back in with his dad. And in this whole surrendering journey, that is the biggest loss of my life. Having to see him go. No, not because his dad is not a good person or is not good for him, but I've always been with him, that there is sort of a bond that forms when a mom is just mom with her kids, single parenting. And that was jarring. It broke me open. I talk about all this healing and narratives and stories coming back. You're not good enough.
Yeah.
You didn't do a good job. This is happening because you cannot hold down a job. This is you're choosing wrong. But the whole time, and I was in pieces. Okay, it's you're talking about a whole lifetime with him. He just turned 18, and all of a sudden I'm not going to wake up to him. I'm not going to smell him, hear his voice. It was so much of a grieving process for me, but it was also a lot of surrendering. It was also an understudy of faith and promise, and the promise of what God has in store for you, and how much anchored am I feeling within this. And I'm really grateful he had his dad to go to. I'm really grateful that he's thriving and moving forward in his life, and that he has had the ability to have those years with his dad. They have served him well. He is doing amazing. He had his own dad be a role model to him. That's beautiful. He got to take that time. It doesn't take away the pain I felt, right? But I want to name the truth of it. I am absolutely beyond grateful that he had his father to go to, and that we didn't end up in a situation that was me under the bridge, right? With my two kids, because I felt that. I felt like I'll just take them anywhere. I'm not going to separate from him. But I kept also hearing that guidance, right? And the best thing I could do at that time, and I'm really glad I did, was listen to that inner guidance, my guides, Yeshua, always saying, it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's not forever. You can talk, right? You've been with him for all of this time, and it was a very difficult time. And I think what I'm trying to say is this is what makes surrender so tender, because you're constantly facing head on things that you must let go of in faith to receive in faith. I don't know how things would have turned out if I had stubbornly said, I don't think so. I would rather go be under a bridge. And right now, my beautiful son, who is one of a kind, is thriving, has traveled out of the country internationally on his own. He's moved states. He has his license. There's so many milestones he's been able to reach because he has experience other than, right? And as a mom, I could have, not even as a mom, but as me, I could have said, no, I'm going to be in control. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to push. And the most beautiful gift I could have given him and me was the ability of that surrender into faith, into knowing that because I couldn't see more than a couple steps in front of me and God could, I had to listen. It doesn't come easy. It doesn't come without some sort of a price to teach exactly that. You're not the one in control. And the more you lean into the aspect of faith within that, into the aspect of He's the all-knowing, I'm just here, right? With the limitations of this vessel, and not continuously take it as things are always happening to me. No, they're always happening for you. You just have to move aside a little bit. You just have to learn to take a beat and not think that you're the one handling it all and juggling it all. And if you drop something, then you screwed up, right? Yeah. It's nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with where's your faith? Yeah. Where are you leaning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sums it all, right? Trusting the process and having the faith and asking the higher beings, the guides, and them for help when you need it, and they will provide it through someone else, but you will be helped. You will be guided. Messages will come through. Phone calls will come through. They will be answered. And, sometimes I feel that you do, not some, like I feel that there has to be a space created for anything to come into it. So it's so necessary to let the old go. Create that space, sit in that empty space for a bit, experience it. And so you have already grown by doing that, and then the new can come through. And that's how the expansion happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growth happens.
Yeah. The end is a new beginning. It's a
Yeah.
reframe, right? The
It is.
crumbling is the rebirth, right? And we've talked about this before. In the tight spaces is where you learn to breathe, to get that breath, right? To learn to lean on and trust. And a song just popped into my head. So I'm not gonna sing, but it's called Don't Take Shape. And it's such a beautiful way of saying, be malleable. Let God work with and through you, right? Don't take shape. Don't harden. Allow yourself to still be molded into what you're meant to be, how you're meant to exist. It's not always going to be easy, but boy, is it great every single time you allow God to reshape you into the next version, right? And that's the whole point of surrender, is to hold compassion, stay in faith, and keep on going, because it was never about quitting. It is always about just continuing on, right? Thank you so much for listening to us and being here with us. We've missed recording.
Yes.
We've missed being here, and we're just grateful to be here. If there's one thing to sit with from today, surrender is not giving up. It's the bravest thing the spiritual journey will ever ask you to do. Open your hands when everything in you wants to hold on tighter. You don't have to see the next step. You just have to trust that there is one. And if you're in the void right now, with nothing under your feet and nothing in sight, you're not lost. You're just in the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Don't take shape yet. Allow yourself to still be molded. The path was never in front of you. It was always beneath you. Thank you for being here with us. If this episode moves something within you, please share with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a review. It helps more people find this space. Find us on all your favorite social media platforms. And remember, you already are what you're looking for. Trust your insight, act with purpose, and stay in your knowing. Everything I held, it was always there.